Yes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shloka Shankar's signature workshop on found and visual poetry held under the auspices of the Cmi Arts Initiative. Now, for a few words about the Cmi Arts Initiative, it was established, in fact, to create some space for students and faculty who are interested in arts and humanities to interact with experts and learn. It was a forum created for that. I'd like to also tell you that our founder, the late Professor Seshadri, always hoped that math students would evince interest in arts, literature, poetry, generally humanities. He felt that, such a interest should be nurtured by the institute so that they will evolve into more wholesome human beings, their personality would get enriched. Now, Cmi Arts Initiative has many facets. One, for instance, is the artwork on the auditorium foyer. The artwork is entitled The Music of the Spheres. Actually, it links the magic of art to the science of mathematics. I say this for the benefit of those students who have not yet come to the campus. So when they come, they can look it up. Another facet is the Writers in Residence program. It was started in partnership with Sangam House. By this, two writers of international acclaim, they spent about a month on the CMI campus, interacting with students and staff. In fact, a couple of them have held creative writing workshops, and some of them have given special lectures to the students who had offered an elective on the art of short fiction. We also have some poetry workshops. We've had one on haiku, and I think Srilata, you conducted one on palimpsest poetry. And because of the constraints following pandemic, we are now switching over to online workshops. So here we have Shloka's found and visual poetry. So such a pleasure to have you, Shloka, on board.
Likewise, thank you.
To a really splendid time and lots of learning.
Thank you.
Over to you, Srilata.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. I have to introduce you formally, Shloka.
Okay, yes.
We can't.
Please don't miss it. She'll have lots of things to say.
Yeah, hi again. And thank you. Real pleasure to have you with us, Shloka. So delighted. Shloka, for those of you who don't know her, is a poet, editor, publisher, also a visual artist. She's based out of Bangalore. And one of the things that she enjoys doing is experimenting with Japanese short forms. Japanese short forms tend to be very classical and very in a way cautious, conservative kinds of things. But I think Shloka does also kinds of things with it, and she's a very sort of a free-thinking poet in that sense. And Shloka is the Best of the Net nominee, award-winning haiku poet, and her poetry and artwork have appeared in various journals. She's also co-edited a lot of international poetry anthologies. She's currently the founding editor of Sonic Boom, which is an arts literary journal, and there's an imprint called Yavanika Press, which she also edits. She's the founding editor of that Yavanika Press. So she also, as she conducts several poetry workshops, including, of course, the one that you're going to be attending now. She also has a website, and we'll put it in the chat box for you, where you can find her abstract art, digital collages, and different kinds of things that she does. Yeah. So over to you, Shloka. This is a workshop on found and visual poetry, which, as Usha said, is her signature workshop. And we have been looking forward to this, I think, all of last month. I mean, for a month now, actually.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. So yes, I'll just share my screen. 1 second. Can you give me access, Srilata? It says host disabled participant screen sharing. You're on mute. I can't hear you. Are you saying something?
No. Does anybody know how?
You just have to click on multiple. When you go to screen share, there's an option.
No, you make her a co-host. That's enough. She can.
Okay, yeah, that's fine as well.
So she can take over. Yeah.
Now I don't know how to make her a co-host either.
Okay, so if you go to gallery
you type
view,
her name. No, you type her name and the option will pop up.
Oh, okay. So just basically go to the participants and find her, and then that. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Right. 1 minute. I'm so sorry. Make as co-host. Okay, good. Got it. I got it. Yeah. I think now you're co-host.
Yes.
Huh? So sorry.
Can you see? No problem. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Poetry is everywhere. Yeah.
So this is Poetry is Everywhere, an introduction to found poetry and visual poetry. So let's jump in. So I'd like to start off with this quote by James Clear, completely different context. So I think it works really well with regard to found poetry for some weird reason. He talks about elimination being the highest form of optimization, more in regard, if you're familiar with his book, Atomic Habits, and his newsletter, which comes out every Thursday. He talks about productivity, habit forming, and time management, and all of those things. So, but I liked the way this also fits in so well with the whole realm of found poetry, and kind of seeing what really works for you, and optimization in terms of words, right? So less is more. Also, the haiku brain in me kind of saw this as kind of relevant as well. So yes, what exactly is found poetry? Let's start off with a few basic, I won't say definitions, but just the general idea. So quite simply put, a found poem is basically a poem crafted using different source texts and all forms of the written word. When I say all forms, I quite literally mean all forms, because it can be extremely loosely interpreted, and it's open to all a wide variety of stuff that you can use to create your poems. And now we have this quote by Annie Dillard: by entering a found text as a poem, the poet doubles its context. The original meaning remains intact, but now it swings between two poles. The poet adds or at any rate increases the element of delight. This is an urban, youthful, ironic, cruising kind of poetry. Now, please note the emphasis is mine. When I say it swings between two poles, in Japanese short forms, we heavily rely on this tool or this technique called juxtaposition, or the link and shift between one image and the other. And found poetry is pretty much similar to that. When I say swing between two poles, you have the original source text on the one hand and what you do with it on the other hand. And the difference in between is that beautiful, delicious, kind of surprise element which you bring. Like, for instance, if I were to use Alice in Wonderland, and if my final poem has the words down the rabbit hole, that's going to be a kind of a bummer, because I immediately know the source text. But when you leave your readers guessing what the source text could have possibly been, that's where your success truly lies. Okay, so that's what I mean by swinging between two poles. It need not be very radical, but yes, it needs to increase the element of delight, right? And this is a very famous quote from Tradition in the Individual Talent by Eliot. Immature poets imitate, mature poets steal, bad poets deface what they take, and good poets make it into something better, or at least something different. So our goal as found poets for today, or I mean, if you wish to carry this on and if you love the form, then yes, like me, I've been doing it for 7 years now, and I'm totally smitten. It's a love affair that's going to last a lifetime, I guess. So, we have the idea of increasing the element of delight, turning it into something better, and I would add something radically different, right? And as a case in point, I'd like to show you this example. The final poem must depart in meaning from the source text. Do not let it be a summary, right? So that swinging between two poles is crucial in a found poem. A lot of people, when I see them, they create blackouts or erasures. It's too close to the text. There's no juxtaposition. There's no leaping. There's no shifting, right? So that's something which we need to keep in mind. And for example, turning a newspaper article on a criminal trial into a poem about a criminal trial isn't that huge of a stretch, right? It's not that big a deal. But if you were to somehow turn that into a psychological, I don't know, reading or about your birthday, kind of make it as twisted and bizarre and surreal as that is genius. Okay, so any questions with regard to this slide? Anyone? You can unmute and ask me.
No, it's good.
Okay. So the 4 types that I will be covering in today's workshop is the blackout, the erasure, the cut up, and the book spine. Okay, so let's start with the black. What materials can you use? So like I said, this is non-exhaustive. You can use poems, both your own as well as those by others. You can use novels, non-fiction books, newspapers, magazines, articles of any kind, both analog, digital. This can include Wikipedia, BuzzFeed, Scoop, Whoop. Anything with words in it is fair game. Political speeches. In fact, I culled out a series of haiku from Trump's presidential inaugural speech in 2016. I know, I'm crazy. I found poetry in Trump's inaugural speech, and it was actually specifically curated by this online magazine, which was only looking for poems created from the inaugural speech of his. So I created a series of 7 or 8 haiku. So you can do that as well. Okay, and how are you deconstructing that basically, right? So we have movie quotes, song lyrics, podcasts. Okay, so you can also listen to podcasts and write down the words you're listening or what words strike you, and then create your poem using that, right? You can use brochures, instruction manuals. In fact, I'll be showing you an example of an instruction manual blackout shortly. You have junk mails, spam emails. These are also, you can use them as well. Absolutely anything with words. And this also includes product packaging. Like for instance, when I was doing this similar exercise with the Pune Writers Group earlier this year, one of them, Swati was her name, she quickly ran to her kitchen pantry and pulled out a packet of custard and blacked out the ingredients part of it. I was like, wow, this is insane. Okay, so basically anything with words, shampoo bottles, milk cartons, whatever. Okay, so you can use anything, absolutely anything. And I think that the more unpoetic it is, and the more you can find poetry in the quotidian, that's where, you know, the level of difficulty increases naturally, because the poem is naturally poetic. But if you were to use a novel or a non-fiction book, that makes it 10 times harder, right? To find something, or a political speech for that matter, right? So, yes. What do you need to get started? Just your source text, again, text very loosely defined here. A black marker, if you wish to do this analog style, but you can also use a simple photo editor on your phone and get the doodle option to create the blackout. Paints or colored markers are optional for your erasure. Online photo editing tools, I'll be giving you a list of which ones you can use. Scissors and glue, your trusty bookshelf, and most importantly, a keen and discerning eye. Okay. Blackout poetry. Okay, so Austin Kleon is this person who actually revived the whole blackout poetry kind of as a I think he made it well known to the masses, so to speak. And his book Newspaper Blackout is a collection of all of his poems blacked out. From what he used to do is sit at his desk every morning, pick up a copy of the New York Times, and quite literally use a black Sharpie marker and black out the words that didn't form his poem and only retained those that did. So on the left-hand side here, you have art is 99% robbery, which I think is like the manifesto for found poetry, brilliantly done, right? So, and also you can see the kind of juxtaposition here, even in terms of the typography. So you have headline versus body of the article. You can also play around with the font and kind of the layout, and because this is visual, right? So you can also play around with that aspect of it. So basically the genesis of the blackout is you retain the words to your poem and black out the rest. As the name suggests, is simply that. You pay attention to the arrangement of words on your page. While you cannot add your own words to the poem, this is crucial for any found poem for that matter, you can only work with what you've got. You cannot add your own words, right? But you can, however, manipulate the tenses of certain words for context, right? So I'll just quickly share his, you can find numerous examples of his blackouts here. I'll just share the link in the chat box. Okay, so any questions so far about blackout? Is anything, I will be showing you a ton of other examples, but anything unclear so far? Am I too fast? I tend to do that, but if I need to slow down, just let me know. Any questions?
Here.
Okay, I'll slow down. Okay, Adisha, thanks. Right. Right. So here we have, there are no off days. Every day is created from scratch. Right. So this is again from the newspaper. There are no off days. Every day is created from scratch. Okay, so basically he's taken the newspaper. It's an article in the newspaper. He's taken his black marker, and I would suggest not taking more than say 4 or 5 words maximum consecutively. I would suggest to space it out for maximum impact. That's just a personal choice. There's no rule that you can't use a whole line, but I don't see the point of using a whole line, because then again, it becomes too close to the text. We always have to keep that idea or that analogy of the criminal trial and birthday in our heads while we're creating a found poem, right? So this is, I think this was put up as a Valentine's Day post, which was so, so cute. You make everyone else, everyone else. I think this is the sweetest ever poem, super minimalist, brevity at the heart of it, and yet it says it all. Okay, so you make everyone else, everyone else. I absolutely love this to bits. So, and again from the newspaper. Okay, so just the everyday newspaper, right? Grow old and the past is given. Again, very philosophical. Grow old and the past is given. And this one on the right says to be a teacher and remain a student. Now notice how he's isolated the letters. So when I said, if you remember back from here, I said you can manipulate the tenses. You can also manipulate certain words, okay, for context, right? So supposing I needed this to be scratches, and if I had an E and an S on the same line, that's perfectly doable. But I cannot add something which is not there in the original. That's not allowed, okay? So here, and please note that even if you decide to isolate individual letters, it's important that they all be on the same line. Now, if you expect me to kind of decipher what this means, supposing this word was together, for example, okay, so you have T, O, G, E, and then T here, you are going to give the reader a migraine. So try your best to make sure all of these words are in the same line. And even if you do decide to split them, make sure it's discernible, right? And it's a conscious choice. Okay, so this is one aspect of manipulation which we'll be seeing. Okay, I have to create myself, you. Okay, so this is by one of my students using the comics that we find in the newspaper. So yeah, I have to create myself, you. I loved this. All works by my students. Love lies in the arms of a curse. So you notice how she has changed the tense here, right? And then she's made singular plural, and then she's isolated curse again here, right? But they're all in the same line, so it's easily readable. Okay, but had she, you know, like had C been here and U here and then R here and then S from another word, that would become very complex. Okay, so always remember, even if you decide to isolate your letters for the sake of the poem, it's all right as long as they remain in the same line. She's done something similar here as well with the comic strip. My thirst is a mirror of the world. Okay, my thirst is a mirror of the world. And you can also black out punctuation. She's chosen not to black out the full stop here, but if you want to, you can do that as well. And this is from an instruction manual. My heart is not a convenient jar to keep your plastic love. Can anyone guess what instruction manual this is? Like what could have been the original source? Can you unmute yourself and let me know if you have any guesses?
Blender.
Sorry?
A blender.
Yes, a Sumit mixer grinder. Yes, exactly. So, you know, so my heart And I think the giveaway is only Ja, but otherwise I was mind blown. I was like, oh my goodness, how is this even possible from an instruction manual? So she's nailed it. My heart is not a convenient jar to keep your plastic love. In fact, this piece won third place in the annual WISPO contest. WISPO is short for visual poetry, by the way. We organize it every June. We started it this year. It happens every June, and I will share a link to that soon. I will do that soon. Okay, so this is one of mine. The world will be ready when you and I get out of here. The monotony of crazy is worse than Russian dances. Okay, so here again, you see I've isolated letters, but they're all in the same line, so it's fine. It's easy to read, right? The world will be ready when you and I get out of here. The monotony of crazy is worse than Russian dances. Now, because this is a visual poem and the blackout nature is kind of graphic, we need to keep our poem relatively short because something really long will again become hard to read. And while you are, it's better to move in a sequential manner and not, start here, come here, go back here. That will again become a really hard for the reader to kind of decipher and kind of see from how do I read this? That becomes mind-boggling. So as far as possible, try to go sequentially, but you can break the rule sometimes if it's not too over the place. And I'll be showing you examples of that as well. But as far as possible, try to keep all your letters, isolated letters in the same line and try to move from top to bottom. Okay. Right. That's something. Pain is good for many a purpose in life. Okay. And now I will be showing you an example of what I meant by, moving. This is not sequential, right? So had I not drawn the lines, I would not be leading the reader's eyes and telling them how it should be read. Without the lines, the natural way to read this would be the eyes of yesterday still unconscious with answers out, which doesn't make any sense, right? So here I've made it the eyes of yesterday still unconscious without answers. So I've taken the liberty to split with and out, and with and out, I've also isolated my OUNT. But it's still readable. It's not too over the place. Had I put this here and this here and this here, that would be messy, right? And you can, of course, make cleaner lines. I just did this very quickly and I just posted it. So you can be crisper with your lines and neater and kind of do them. But otherwise, I like the squiggly lines because that imperfection kind of suits the overall frayed edges and stuff. So I stuck to that. Right. And the app that I use for my erasures and blackouts is Pixelart. I just typed that in the chat box. I actually prefer the app version because the desktop version is a little complicated and almost similar to Photoshop. So it has a lot more stuff which you don't really need. The app version is pretty simple. So you just have to download the Pixelart app, and with very simple effects and the doodling option, you can erase and black out whatever you don't want. Right? So yes. The world sleeps, but rarely. So this is from a newspaper article again, done live during one of my workshops by one of my students. The world sleeps, but rarely. And this is, unbeknownst to her, I told her later on that this was a splendid one-line haiku. She didn't realize it at the time. And she didn't even know, a haiku could be written in one line, but I loved the way this turned out nevertheless. So here, in the wind-whipping darkness, falling snow. Right? So here, even though she has not chosen to go sequentially, she has kind of drawn lines to lead the reader's eye. Right? So in the wind-whipping darkness, falling snow. And this is a beautiful mono-sick one-line haiku, whatever you want to call it. A one-sentence poem, basically, a single-line poem. Right? So in the wind-whipping darkness, falling snow. Okay. And this was recently done from an article, newspaper article about what's going on in Afghanistan. So the withdrawal of days into a summer-long coda. This is again a one-line haiku. The withdrawal of days into a summer-long coda. I'll try and locate the original for you guys, just so you can see how it's been transformed. The withdrawal of days into a summer-long coda. So any questions before we move on to erasure?
Yeah, I had one question.
Yes.
Couple of questions. Basically, you talked about moving between two poles, right? So the original and the creative
Correct.
Work. I was just wondering, in terms of, is it practice not to reveal the original? Because a lot of times, I mean, you show the poem, but of course, is there?
You have to cite the source, Ajinkya. I forgot to mention that you always need to cite the source at the bottom.
Yeah, that's because it makes it more interesting to know.
Exactly, right. I forgot to mention that all found poems, you have to definitely cite the source.
Yeah. And one more thing. So, for example, when you were speaking about recrafting work from, say you're doing it from poetry itself, or you're doing it from existing stuff, and not to use complete lines, or I mean.
Right. Like, I'll give you an example of what that would look like. There was this project which took place in 2017 or 18, where women poets specifically were asked to erase Bukowski from a feminist perspective.
Right.
So when you do that, or a politically one political angle, and maybe a post-colonial reading of a text which is not meant to be that way. I mean, you can kind of apply your own stuff to it, but as long as it swings between two poles and you are creating something radically different, I think anything goes.
Right. So,
yeah.
So I mean, your example probably illustrates what I was trying to ask, but I just wanted. So, for example, if you do this with a famous poet, or a particular line,
it should sound like Ajinkya and not Ramanujam or
of course.
Malhotra. Yeah. Right. That's the end result.
Yeah. No, I was saying, say for instance, there is a recognizable line, like for example, the Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
Example that you were saying, isn't it also interesting when that line starts to mean something completely different in the new space, and that could come out of intent, right?
Absolutely, that's fine. As long as it doesn't summarize it, but it's different, that's great. That would kind of work really well if it's pulled off well.
Then it's deliberate. I mean, I've seen a couple of examples of that. Very nice.
Right.
Yeah. So wherein you're deliberately retaining a significant part of maybe a line, or
right.
5 words, but then the other things that you do with the rest of the poem actually make that. Yeah, I just wanted to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shloka, I had a question also.
Yes.
A quick thing. So I noticed that at least with all your work, whatever you've showed us so far, what you've done is essentially you sort of work towards haiku or a senryu like micro poem, right?
Right.
What it always is? Can't you make a longer poem?
Because it is a visual representation, what happens is that if this were to be like super long, a great question, Srilata, what I would do is I would kind of transcribe this into a free verse poem and say it's a blackout from so and so, which stanzas and line breaks.
Oh, so you're saying that would be then a two-step process. So you would do this
exactly,
and then
that way you can play around with where you want to place the words, where the line breaks. You can also show off. I mean, the white space plays a very big role there. So you can choose to kind of depict it exactly like you blacked it out, or you can also manipulate it in other ways. So I have an example in Sonic Boom. I just need to remember which issue, but I'll pull it up when you guys are working on your poems and show it to you.
Okay, thank you.
It's there. So what I suggested was it was impossible to kind of read her original because it was very, very heavy on the eyes. So I said, can you transcribe this and show it to us how you would write it using line breaks?
Right.
That's easier on the eyes. But because it's visual, I think sticking to few words is better. But it can be done with line breaks as well, noting that this is a blackout poem from so-and-so.
Right.
Page so-and-so of this novel or whatever article you're using. And if it's online, always hyperlink your text because the editors can then quickly check the original source. If it's not available online, it's fine. You can just cite whatever citation method you use, MLA format, or just plainly saying that so-and-so is from so-and-so is fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one follow-up. I mean, it's related a little bit to Professor Srilata's question also. I mean, you're talking about it in, it has a lot to, it is visual and it has a lot to do with the arrangement of words on the page, etc. So there is, there were a couple, like the one on the screen, there is an example of how you're playing with sequentiality a little bit, and the words, there are moving words around, etc. And then there is concrete poetry. So does it get very, I mean, do people sort of do that a lot, where they're, for example, deliberately again playing around with the way the layout of the words on the screen, along with erasure, or I mean, along with blackout, etc.
It can be done, but personally, for me, the words matter more than the arrangement. For me, the final poem needs a lot more than how it's arranged on the page, because I just want to make sure mine is coherent, and I'm trying and always kind of going back to that idea of, is it far removed from the original text? Am I doing justice to the piece? I mean, is it just a summary, or am I doing something more with this? So that's always the question I keep asking myself. And if it happens sequentially, great, because I liked how this Russian dances one turned out, because it was completely removed from the, and I liked how this is sort of pandemic-y also, like when I get out of here, like the whole monotony of crazy, the whole situation we're all going through right now. So, and this is from a Charlene Harris's novel called, oh gosh, a Greater Fall, I think that was the title. So yeah, okay, so this was from there, and I liked how this became sort of topical in a way, without me intending it for to be that. So yeah, basically what I do is I read it, I look at the words, I see which words speak to me. And for those of you who are just getting started, it might seem daunting. What I would suggest is just circle the nouns and verbs that you find, and then kind of add your filler words like conjunctions, articles and stuff, and flesh it out. So if you don't know where to start, just circle words with a pencil on the page that really speak to you. See what, like for instance, this the article on Afghanistan, I definitely knew I wanted to use coda. I loved withdrawal. I knew I wanted to use days, and then it came together. So initially I only had these 3 days, then words, and then I looked for a sequence and I got it done. So
Shloka, Abhisha has a question on the chat.
Oh yes, 1 second. What exactly this is?
She says, what's the difference between visual and found poetry?
Okay, visual poetry is a lot of things, right? Vispo is a lot of things. Found poetry, especially Blackout and the ones I'll be showing you, fall under the category of visual. So visual poetry is like the umbrella term, and Blackout, erasure, cut up, and all of this sits under that. Found poetry, again, is a lot of things, but these are kind of found poems. Okay, so found poetry, visual poem need not always be using a source text. A visual poem can be completely original, right? It can be a scenic writing, it can be a lot of other things also, which are not using found material. Like Ajinkya mentioned, concrete poetry is also a kind of visual poem, right? So visual basically is it presupposes both a reader and a person who's actually viewing the text. That's a visual poem. There's an element of both art, a little bit of art and poetry, which comes and gives you that visual experience. But a found poem, on the other hand, it's definitely words that are sourced from different texts, one or many. Blackout, obviously, you can't use more than 2 texts at the same time, but you can do that for other types like cento and remixes and so on. Right. So I hope that answers your question, Avisha. Right, now we move on to erasures. So erasures can make use of background images, while I always make this this very easy way to people get confused between what is the difference between erasure and blackout. Quite simply, blackout is very goth. Okay, it's super goth and it's drab, it's black, it's boring. Erasure is the sassier, jazzier cousin. Okay, so here you have background images, you can use abstract art, you can use collage, you can use doodles. These can be plain backgrounds. If you're not all that comfortable with the idea of using these editing apps, there's a very easy way of doing this, even with just MS Word. It's super easy. You can use photographs, anything can be used as the backdrop. But the process remains the same. You retain the words to your poem and erase the rest. You pay attention to the arrangement of words on your page. While you cannot add your own words to the final piece, you can, however, manipulate the tenses of certain words for context. And very similar to Blackout, this can also be done directly on paper, or you can use a photo editor of your choice. Like I mentioned, there's Pixelart, there's also Canva. There are plenty, Photoshop if you're comfortable with it, Illustrator. Okay, so all of those. The picture on the left was created from a photocopy of Rumi's poem. And my poem is just this poetry, I don't plan it. And this is titled Ars Poetica. It's a published piece. And so I liked the whole serendipitous kind of thing, which happens with, it's chance after all, right? Because I don't pre-plan my source text. I just go look at a page, see what works, and then I create my poem, right? And this was done in 2016 or 15, I guess. And I was obviously into Zentangling at the time. So this is my attempt at just kind of doodling the entire page and just kind of leaving that small portion, which is my poem. So this poetry, I don't plan it. Right? So that's, I literally don't plan it. It's just chance that happens on the page. So yes.
So you can't add your words, but you can add any photos, is it?
Right, erasures, you can add a background. Yes, absolutely. I'll be showing you more examples. So this was again done on Pixelart. All I did was, it started off as a blackout, right? So this was completely black. And then I just added a couple of filters to create this abstract background. That's it. Pixelart is very, very user-friendly, just like Canva, pretty simple. Soon enough, you'll know everything is not, yeah?
Sorry, could you just go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
I'm still a little confused. So okay. What you have done here is you've done these doodles, right? So that's the base, right?
Yes.
And then you have sort of then there are those words, Rumis, you said.
Right.
Yeah. And what do you mean by erase the rest? As in erase what?
Erase the rest of the words which don't kind of comprise your poem. So I've kind of blotted out the remaining text here by using doodles.
Okay.
Right, but instead of blacking it out like we did here, I'm erasing them by, like for instance here, I've essentially blacked out, but then the final product is an erasure. Like here, there were other words obviously, but I've deleted them, I've erased them. Oh. But there's a background here instead of the plain black.
Right.
The process is the same, but this is more appealing, is what I would say.
Yes, yes. Okay.
So blackout is goth, and this is the classier, jazzier cousin of that.
Actually, if you can add your photos.
Absolutely, as long as they are copyright free, that's important.
But that is more liberty, right?
Exactly. But the thing is, they have to be copyright free. So as long as they are your photos, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so places to find this would be, there's this website called freepic.com, then there's something called pictabay.com. Of course, there's Wikimedia Commons, then there's pexels.com. All these, I think there's something called unsplash.com. As long as they are, yeah, exactly. Yashwan just typed. So yeah, unsplash.com. So if you guys know any others, you can type them in the chat box. These are the ones that I use. Right. So I basically use Pixelart for filters because it's super easy. I don't really use images for mine. But then again, Usha, it's important that your photo does something beyond summarize the text. Like what in Japanese short forms, you have something called haiga, where the picture and the haiku sort of also link and shift from each other. It's not just the poem, but also the image. So that gives it like a different aspect and a dimension to the whole piece.
Okay.
Where they're in conversation with each other and not just describing what's happening. It's not a mere ekphrasis, if I can say that. It goes beyond that. Okay. If I write about sunset, I can't just put a sunset there. It has to be a little more. Right? So something of like that. Which is why I prefer abstract backgrounds personally, because there's room for interpretation that way. So soon enough, you'll know everything is not so important after all. Right? So here I have taken like slightly longer words and strung them together because I think I wanted it for this particular piece. So it's completely up to you how the page reads and what you see at that point. And here, from here, follow the loose stitches of the past. Bring a blank page when you return. So this again, going back to the idea of tabula rasa and beginning from scratch. Yeah, and I kind of drew these dotted, these dashes to kind of mimic the idea of stitches. So from here, follow the loose stitches of the past. Bring a blank page when you return. Okay. For a moment, fading swallows fill the hut. This is again a haiku. For a moment, fading swallows fill the hut. The least you can do is float and look alive. This is just a one sentence. It's not a haiku. It's just the least you can do is float and look alive. This was one of the featured poems in, I don't remember the issue number, but it was featured in Unlost Journal, which is a journal that primarily focuses only on found poetry. Unlost Journal. It's part of, that's good. It is part of Right Hand Pointing, that same group of journals, Right Hand Pointing, First Frost, Unbroken Journal, they're all the same. Dale Wisely is the editor. So yeah. Common sense dispersed, looking us up and down. So I kind of personified common sense here. And I've also used Pixelart again. I think 4 different filters. One was this black background, one was this blippy thing here, and then one was the stencil kind of effect. One was the crack, and yeah, and this was another. So about 4 or 5 filters, very, very easy to use. So common sense dispersed, looking us up and down. And here you have another one. Creative people need nurturing in an island of odd jobs. So I think the original word here was needed. So I manipulated the tense in a way, erased ed, need, in an island. I think this was definitely 2 separate words. So A from one word and N from the other, slight manipulation again. In an island of odd jobs. Both of these pieces were created from the Jurassic Park novel. In fact, I created 30 poems in 30 days from Jurassic Park last April for NaPoWriMo National Poetry Writing Month in 2020. So yeah. Okay. A tunnel in the dirt of your love. I'm made of pissed off and real tired of you. I fell in love with this phrase and I knew I had to use it. So, and this is how this came about. So this was just a kind of fun piece. A tunnel in the dirt of your love. I'm made of pissed off and real tired of you. So this made me laugh so hard when I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, this has to be in my erasure. So that's how this one came into being. This one was also published in Unlost. What if all the fun seeped out of man? It would confirm everything I know to be true. Okay. What if all the fun seeped out of man? It would confirm everything I know to be true. So this was again Pixelart. I've used the brick wall a bit and this lighty effect. I don't remember what it's called now. So yeah. And these frayed edges in the border. That's about it. Okay. You can, like I've done here, isolate even punctuation marks, because obviously I didn't find one here, but I did find one here and I wanted that to be visible, and pause, so before it is answered. So this was, I think, Ajinkya, this was deliberate because I think sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's not. I think it depends on the piece. So yeah. This was done by an 11-year-old, and this was done by a 15-year-old. I also did this workshop with kids earlier this year. The deserted woods protect the key. So this was from the Da Vinci Code. I've used this photograph. I think it was a copyright-free image. So the deserted woods protect the key. Okay. And this is by Palak, who is 15. She also used this very cool background, which is very cellular kind of thing, microscopic. Amongst the chaos of my decisions, I could hear the words of the universe. So she erased this essentially from one of her essays. So this was erased from her own work. So you guys are more than welcome to erase your own poems. Okay, so that would be interesting because only you know what your original intent was. So how can you erase it to kind of, create that idea of swinging between two poles, because you know what the original was, and how are you turning or removing it from that original source, right? So that would be an interesting exercise. Okay, so for those of you who are not too comfortable with these backgrounds and you want to do it in a very simple manner, I will be showing you examples for that as well. So your fire pulsing under mounds of silence. Your fire pulsing under mounds of silence. Okay, and this is another one. Books favor hope when nothing else works. I love this. So she's used this copyright-free image in the background, added a slight veil, like, I think there's one more image here to kind of make this translucent. And then she's added the book as another layer. You can either do this on Canva or any other app of your choice. Working with layers is I think Canva is good for that. So books favor hope when nothing else works. Okay. And here is what I meant by, if you want to ditch the background completely and you just want it to be white space. Irresponsibility is airborne. So this was actually from The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, which I worked on this year for NaPoWriMo. And it's almost like a manifesto for Corona. So irresponsibility is airborne, right? So it can be very minimalist. Kindness is down to one species. I like how down to one species, but then the poem is actually reading upwards. So this happened again by chance, it wasn't planned. So kindness is down to one species. Okay, this was also from Silence of the Lambs. And what I did was, for this, it started off as completely white, right? And I added this filter on Pixelart. So if you want to do blackout and erasure on a Word document, okay, I'm just typing something randomly. Okay, so okay, and if I were to black out, all I have to do is go to the highlight option and make this black. Why is it not working? Oh, sorry, highlight option and make it black. Okay, so if I were to erase this, I would erase this, erase the rest of it. Right? Or in fact, erase would be making, so you can make this whatever color background you want, right? And then just make sure that the words that you retain on the final page are just matching with that text. For instance, if I make this background yellow, I just need to make sure that all the words I don't choose or that are not part of my poem are also yellow. So just by matching the background color and the font color for the words that don't comprise your poem, you can very easily do this. Okay, that's how it's done on Word. Wait for God to arrange the way. I loved how profound this was. So wait for God to arrange the way. Time can spare you or be a total jerk. Again, the use of font here. So I think this must have been part of a dialogue, probably. Time can spare you or be a total jerk. Okay, so this is completely a visual thing. So, right, and like I mentioned, like the idea of matching the font, the font color with the background color. This is how you would do it ideally. So it can be beige, it can be yellow, it can be whatever color you want, or just white. Plain white is also fine, right? Like how we saw here. All I did was just erase all the words and just keep this alone in black. year of the now normal and not. Okay? Everybody eventually has enough, but of what? I love this. I am out past the frame, but in focus still. So Jenny B. Baker was one of the co-founders of the Found Poetry Review. I think they stopped publishing after 10 issues, and Jenny sadly passed away last year due to brain tumor. But you can, and she was doing this project where she set out to erase every single page from David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest, right? And her project was titled Erasing Infinite. And I think she completed 380 odd pages. And this is the link. So you can find all of them here. Literally, she took a challenge and erased every single page, because some pages are total duds. You can't really work with them at all, because supposing, you turn to a page and it just has 2 lines there, right? And the new chapter starts. What do you do then? But like she has, and her kind of signature style was, she used a lot of these isolated letters. Search, what, might. She was known for this. But all on the same line, so it's fine. It's easy to read. So there are some longer ones. This, of course, is a little harder to read, right? Which is why I suggested, kind of transcribing it into a free verse form. So there are plenty. So 30% completed. So you can read up. I'll just share the link. Okay. Yes. Okay. Next, any doubts with regard to erasure before we move on to the cut-up? Anyone? You can type it in the chat box. I'm having an eye on the chat box, or you can unmute and ask me.
So I was just wondering, Shloka, does this erasure, in the concept of erasure poetry, have anything to do with the mandala at all? Sort of just like wiping things out and working with the idea of actually of erasing things.
Right, you can, you can actually do that as well, because then it would, like when you're consciously, I gave Ajinkya the example, like when you're consciously as a woman poet, you're going back to Bukowski and you're kind of erasing it from that perspective, then it becomes very, very politically charged, or it becomes a feminist reading or a post-colonial reading. That way, if you set out with something intentional in mind, definitely.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it is done usually in the realm of political poems, poetry as well, largely. But then not all of us are interested in that. So, in the sense that it can be done with anything. So, and how you transform the text again is very subjective. So the words that speak to me might not necessarily speak to someone else. So although it's found, I don't think it's right to diss it and just say that it's not really poetry. I don't like people who, it's not fair to say that, because it's subjective at the end of the day. And what I'm doing with it is completely, different from the original text. And if you've kind of managed to do that, I don't see how it's not poetry, because like we'll see now, even with Barrows and other Beat Generation poets, how they played with the form and how they, started with the whole idea of remixing. So you already have something in front of you, but if you're completely transforming that and making it your own, how is that not poetry? So that's just a personal rant I did there, but yes. Okay. Right. So the cut-up technique refers to the act of cutting up a written text and rearranging it to create a new piece. The concept can be traced back to the Dadaists of the 1920s, but was popularized in the late 1950s and early 1960s by writer William S. Burroughs, who belonged to the Beat Generation. Right. So for those of you not familiar with the idea of Zara's to make a Dadaist poem, it's basically this manifesto that he's written for like the Dadaists. And Very simply put, he asks you to take any article in the newspaper, cut it up into different words, individual, choose any one column or an article of any size, and then you cut those, you snip those into individual words, and then you put them in a hat or a box or a cup or whatever is next to you, shuffle them, and without looking, you pick them out and you arrange them to create this poem. And obviously that poem is going to be nonsensical. But why I like this approach is that because you have the idea of chance operation here, you might not ever be able to create that same combination of 2 or more words had you not done this exercise. So that can in turn spark off some really cool word combinations for a future poem or a future piece of writing. So the end product is immaterial in this case, right? It doesn't even make sense, because when I tried this out, my last words were off is the. I was like, what? Okay, so it doesn't make any sense at all. But when you kind of do it with the idea of taking a fresh approach to how language itself is represented and how it is completely broken down in a sense from syntactical meaning, that way it's a really cool experiment. So there's this video which I will just quickly speed up to show you what I meant right now. So she starts off by reading about this particular manifesto and the steps to it, and the steps are here, right? So she chooses an article from the New Yorker. Okay, she chooses this one particular column of text, and then she cuts out each individual line. From those lines, she further cuts them up into individual words. She puts those words into a bowl, into a container, right? And then she shuffles them up. And then she picks them up at random and arranges them on her book. And this is the final poem. Middle East, something, acquisitions, get dollars, set, expedited, I think that's the word, I'm not sure. Museum, million, work out to Iraq. Okay, it doesn't make sense. But then if you were to get a couple of really cool word combinations in the process, words that you wouldn't normally put together, that would in turn spark something really cool. So I'll just quickly share this video. What is the source for I'm made of? Would love to read that text. It's from Charlene Harris's, the same novel that I was through. Are the poems where the women poets erase Bukowski's poems online? It was supposed to be, I have to look for it, Ajinkya. I don't know if it came out because the editor was really sick and that project kept getting delayed, but it was titled Bye Bye Bukowski. That was the title of the book. Okay, so Bye Bye. Maybe it's available on Amazon. I'm not completely sure. This was long back, I think 2016 or 17. I would have to hunt through my emails to actually even look at the submission that I sent. I don't remember very well. Okay, so this was the titles. Maybe you can find more information with that. Okay, I'm going to close this because I'm getting confused. Yes. Okay, so yeah, and one example of Burroughs is using the kata poetry is The Third Mind, which he wrote along with Brian Dyson. And I will just leave the link to this as well, where he used this method. Okay, so Burroughs also created what is known as the fold-in technique, where 2 sheets of linear text with the same line spacing are each folded in half vertically and then torn along the resulting crease mark. One half of each page is then combined with the other to create a third and fourth new page, respectively. So I've not done this, but I'm planning to do this for the Found Poetry Challenge I will be doing in October this year. We're going to be using, I think 40 of us have registered to create found poems from John Grisham's novels. So we've been each assigned a novel, and I've been given The Rainmaker. So I will be creating 31 found poems in 31 days, whole of October, using that text. So I want to definitely try this. So I would suggest, using the same text, of course, but also not the pages not being consecutive, like maybe using the beginning and the middle or the beginning and the end, because that will also show the kind of distance in the narrative if they aren't too close. Okay, so maybe you take page 50 and page 150 as an example. Okay, so so that makes it left half of 50 and right half of 50. And then we have left half of 150 and right half of 150. If I were to tear these in half, that would mean combining left of 50 with right of 150, which makes the third page, and left of 150 and right of 50. I hope that made sense. Okay, so the idea is just to kind of take 2 pages of the same line spacing, fold it in half vertically, tear it in the middle, and then combine it with the other. Okay, so that's how that is. And then once you,
there's a question, I think someone's raised a hand.
Oh yeah, please go ahead.
Or maybe that was a mistake. So I saw a raised hand.
Okay. Okay. So what I would then do is maybe once I combine like say 50 and 150 together to create my third page, I would then try to black out and erase that. Right. So it would be like a 2-step process. So I'm creating a totally new source text, first of all, and then erasing from that or blacking out from that. So that's an example of cut up plus blackout or cut up plus erasure. Okay. This is by Jodi Kleinberg. She, all her bios note that she does not have a TV, and she's created thousands of these. Yes, you heard me right. She's created thousands of these in the last decade or so. Typically, they are all on this green background. This is her website. I'll link it. All of her pieces have this background, and the way she uses a lot of text. 1 second. And I love the website. Chocolate is a verb. So that's her website. He's a very famous visual poet. Is there almost. What is the found poetry challenge you talked about? The one in October. Okay, so it's been. It's going to be hosted by the Poeming. We'll try and find the registration link in a bit, along with the other things I was supposed to find when you guys are trying out your own poems. Okay, so it's hosted by the Poeming every April and October. So Jurassic Park was one last year, then we did Charlie and Harris in October. This year we did Silence of the Lambs, and now we're doing John Grisham. We also did Stephen King in 2016. We did Anne Rice. We did Christopher Pike, who was a nightmare because I got the worst novel on the planet. But I still, managed to create 30 poems in 30 days. So it was fun. We also did V.C. Andrews' Flowers in the Attic. We also did that. So basically, as horrid a text as you can find, and then finding poetry out of that. That is the whole challenge. Okay, so I'll put a registration link if you're interested, Alisha. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so yeah. Life is not binary, not endless. Approaching impermanence, practice for the invisible. So here she's taking various texts and putting them together. A ventriloquist introduced me to my art, reawakened me to poetry. I stalked every stranger with silence. Okay, and you can read more of Jodi's work on her website. This is mine, where this was metallic paint. This was a magazine image, and this was from 3 different articles. So every once in a while, your world stands still. You know what you know, sitting alone in a room, echoing with emptiness. A lashing sea of stories lost forever. So these are completely different texts from magazines. I tend to cut out words that I like, headlines, or generally words that strike me, that kind of call out to me. So I have this box where I place all these images and clippings in, and then I kind of do like a remixing, like I audition each phrase to see where it sits and how it sits. Does it read well and stuff like that? So this is something also that you can definitely try. And not from a novel or a poem, but just everyday ordinary magazines or the newspaper read. Okay, so this was created using that. Remarks, help. So this is also a visual poem. Mystery of the mind, re-echoing. So I think this was Teji's original doodle here, and then she added these words. Mystery of the mind, re-echoing. It's also a kind of kata and a visual poem. Okay. What they had to say. So this is an abstract background and just this one found piece of text. What they had to say. This is again a cut up, just one piece of text with this background, which was handmade, and then I digitally altered it on Pixelart. What happens to memory over time? And this is what I mean by presupposing both a viewer and a reader, because there's something happening between both the background and the words and the overall image. So that's visual poetry. It can also be without images. It can just be, a concrete poem and the use of white space on the page. It need not always have the art element to it. It is a mistake to do things too easily. Cement a little every day, fix something. So this was remixed using quotes about the craft of writing. I think this was remixed from 3 different quotes. Yeah. And this is the size of an ATC, also known as an artist trading card. Artist trading card, which typically measures 2.5 by 3.5 inches. They are super tiny, meant at the size of a playing card. Please excuse my phone, it's ringing. I can't reach it. I hope they stop calling. To do things too easily, cement a little every day, fix something. Okay, so this is again a visual poem that is just like random cut-ups. It was actually just one kind of image which I placed over and over and over on Canva. And this doesn't make any actual sense, but it's still a visual poem in the sense that it has a graphic element to it. Right, so you can find examples of this also in the journal I edit, which is Sonic Boom. I'll be showing you examples of that in the photo essay section. Okay, and here I have collage. I applauded my perseverance. This is a line from Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Okay, so with an abstract background. So these are painted papers. This is a magazine image. This is again a magazine image. This was a line from a movie. To sold your pain as a simple song. I loved this particular line. And then I added this stamped image using Pixelart and these found papers as well. This is a magazine image which was heavily altered. It was actually like a tree, but I changed the color on Pixelart. I completely edited it. So the caravan of thinking, I do it so it feels like hell. So this is a quote from Sylvia Plath. And this was from a magazine, and I liked how this worked with the overall image. So there's that. I'm an overthinker. So yes, the caravan of thinking, I do it so it feels like hell. So again, the image and the words coming together. Hope was cherished in here to there, Stardust. So this again was a mixed media piece. I started off with this blob of acrylic paint and stamping, and then this was just circles cut from a novel and these lines. This is a word from a magazine because you can make out the text is different. The type is different rather. So yes, this I would call forcing yourself to find a poem after you've pasted it down. So when I did this, this was the original water marbling background which I created. And I made the collage, and then I just put these pieces of book text here. I didn't even notice, I just put them there. And then I said, what would happen if I found a poem here? And then lo and behold, I did. Have you no more lanes? You must walk out. This was completely chance. And ever since then, I liked the idea. So then I kind of found, phrases without consciously looking for them. I first stuck it down and then forced myself to find words in them, a poem in them. So I liked the phrase, a sincere pleasure here. And yeah. Oh yeah, Lizzie, Kitty, Darcy. So this is again a very old copy of Pride and Prejudice. Okay. Woman interrupted, we're all time travelers. A glimpse into what once was, a journey to one's deeper knowing. A place that helps create moments that fill your heart. Boxes of love. All that matters is what you leave on the page. Discover the last word. So this was taken from a lot of different places. I cannot cite the sources. It's impossible for me to do that because this is from one magazine. This was, I think, part of that. I mentioned the quotes about writing. So I think this was one of them. All that matters is what you leave on the page. Discover the last word was also part of a magazine. Woman Interrupted was the title of this text. We're all time travelers was another article. So I just pieced them all together. And the background also was collaged. And the children's section of that particular magazine had this crossword puzzle, and I liked how it went with the last word. So I stuck that down there. Yeah, so that's how this piece came together, a complete mishmash of stuff. And I think this was published in Calamus. Okay, so yes, and then so any doubts with regard to cut up, visual poetry, and anything, fold in technique, whatever we saw in this slide, in these slides. Can you just turn it off? Sorry about that. Basil, I just put it on silent.
You have to be a real artist, I think, to complete it.
Not necessarily, because I'm not.
Because I see so much of sketching and artwork, and I think, I think maybe you are an artist and a poet, so I think you manage it so well.
No, but I think for something as simple as this, for instance, it's not very intimidating at all, because all of these were from magazines. Like this textile thing was, I think they had like a spread on various dupattas in India, or the various textiles in India, the kind like ikat and all of that. So I liked how that went, and this was a fine art piece. I just kind of put them together. Once you start looking for images, it's very, very exciting to piece them together, and it's like scouting for words. It's like a treasure hunt. So while I think
this marbling thing, for instance, this marbling.
Right. This was, you can also do this without the marbling. Like here, for instance, all of these are just randomly pasted papers. This was part of a Zentangle. This was from a magazine. This was waves from a magazine. This was just scribbles. This was from the same paper. I used graph paper to kind of make the marks. This was a watercolor. I just randomly put different colors of watercolor on a paper and tore that. So it's just very random, especially the collages are super random. So this as well, right? So very random.
You talk as if it's very easy and simple, but I know that it is really, it's amazing.
Thank you. But it's very, very simple. Trust me. Once you start, I'm not artistic in the least, in the traditional sense. I can't draw a line even if my life depends on it. And we saw that, right? My lines are so squiggly and terrible in the past examples. So we kind of know that. But once you start doing it, you will really enjoy it. So I would suggest that just keeping a box next to you the next time any like interesting pieces of junk mail or book text or even magazines, and then using those to kind of create your word bank. So yes, now we move on to book spine poetry. Book spine poems, as the name suggests, are poems composed using the titles of books as found on their spines. Such an arrangement must be smooth flowing without making it read like a mere list. So there's a difference between giving me like a list of books and like something which has this whole narrative, that subtle narrative, and which tells a story. So be careful what you wish for, love in the present tense like the flowing river. Okay, so this was by my friend Garima. This is an example of a book spine poem, quite simply using the title is on the spine to create your poem, right? Promises, promises, a million little pieces forever. This is by my god sister Laya. Silent spring, the sense of an ending. She's crafted the most stunning two-line haiku with this. So it can be an actual, it can be a free verse poem. In the sense that it can be a haiku, it can be anything. It can just be a short poem. It doesn't matter. Just 2 or 3 books will also do the trick. As long as it reads like a poem and not like a list. Silent spring, the sense of an ending. Okay, so this is one by Bill Waters, and this is again a haiku. Winter morning walks beneath gray skies, the uncommon appeal of clouds. And the beauty of this haiku is the second line, which is called as the pivot in a haiku, where the second line can be read both with the first and the third lines. So I could very easily split this into 2 poems. Winter morning walks beneath gray skies would be my first poem, and beneath gray skies, the uncommon appeal of clouds would be my second poem. So, and I love the presentation of the little bird and the background, very nicely done. And this is hilarious. Family matters, wise and otherwise. Superbly tongue-in-cheek. So, family matters, wise and otherwise. Okay, so have a little faith for one more day, from Syria to the doorsteps of India, towards the second freedom. Right? Reckless tainted love, one day in December. A house without windows, everything I never told you. Here again, a haiku by Kavita. A house without windows, everything I never told you. Superbly done. What can I give a boy called Hope? This is so cute. What can I give a boy called Hope? Switch the fault in our stars, test the sky with glory. By Nandini. Christmas stories, the ministry of utmost happiness. It's almost like, reminds me of Hogwarts and the whole Harry Potter thing. So the whole ministry idea. Christmas stories, the ministry of utmost happiness. Right? Poetics, the subtle art of not giving a dash. I love how she's, paired this Aristotle's with this. I was like, oh my goodness, Aishwarya, gosh. This was a real hoot. Okay. The way of the world, it's all connected. I liked this as well. From dead to worse, things fall apart. Another powerful one. Whatever you do, don't run. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Okay, now it's your turn. And while you guys are trying your hand at Blackout, Erasure, book spine, whatever of your choice, I'll quickly look for those things. I was supposed to look the registration link and show you an example of how a blackout can also be written as a free verse poem. Okay, so yes. This is the link to a couple of my other visual poems, so you can check them out. Thank you, Navina. That's really sweet of you. This is the link. This is my website. I can send you like a summary of what we've done, but not the presentation itself, Adarsh. I can give you like a couple of examples of each type and send it to Srilata, and she can kind of send it to you. So is that okay? Cool. If you would like to check out more of my erasures and stuff, I've been doing this for like 7 years. So there's lots on my poetry page. If you go to photos, you will find a lot more. So yeah. This is another one of my favorites. Art is realistically put into my hands. So this was from Flowers in the Attic by V.C. Andrews. So yeah, I'll just share the link. Oops. Thank you so much, Abhisha. I'm really glad. And if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, this is the link. Okay. Now I was supposed to hunt for something. Yes, the registration link for the poem. Just give me a second. I'll stop sharing my screen. Found it. I would suggest signing up ASAP because I don't know how many novels are left. How many of us have already been assigned our books? So yeah. Sorry about the barrage of links, but I'm just sending stuff as I'm finding them. This was the contest I was referring to earlier. You can check out all of the entries that made it to the honorable mention, the finalists, and the gallery. So there are about 19 or 20 pieces in all. So you can check out the kind of different visual poems here. And also in the photo essay section. I think there's just one more that something that I need to show you. I think it was issue 18, 17, 8. So this one is to answer Srilata's question. I'll just quickly share my screen again. Okay. Can you all see my screen? It says End Piece by KB Nelson.
Yeah, yes, Shloka.
Okay. So this was her original poem, Srilata. Very, very messy. I didn't know what to make of it. So I throw a torch into the decision that you made are consumed. Very, very sloppy, right? So I said, no, this is very complicated. So I would suggest like transcribing this. So she used Shelley's Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and this was how it's meant to be read. So I throw a torch into the desolation that you made. You are consumed among the ruins. You become the prey, the victim. Your malign power is withdrawn. No happiness, no virtue, no affection. I am content. My sufferings soothed. I hoped for love and devotion. Pardon my thoughts. I am filled with visions of beauty and goodness, but even so, I'm fallen. I am alone. It's a lot more powerful when written this way than for me to sit and figure out which line is going. So, that's when you can totally ditch this and just stick to doing this for longer pieces. But the process is pretty much the same.
Right. Yeah. It's clear now. Thank you.
Yes. But because it's a visual poem, I suggest minimalism. That's the only thing. You can find our archives here. So we've published 20 issues so far. Oh, awesome, Ashwini. How do I download this? 1 second, click to download. Very cool source text. In fact, I've had students who've done this as well. They've used Windows settings as obscure as that. Random instructions and whatever you find, even on your laptops and computers, they've used. Very cool. So does anyone have any questions? Overall, any doubts? Also, you're welcome to, if you can't create all of your pieces now and you'd like feedback, this is my email. I'm just putting it. You can always email me your piece later if you like. Or Instagram DM, whatever's, easiest for you, you can do that.
I just wanted to ask one thing, more like a comment. You talked about workshops you've done with children. I just wanted to, so I'd done some work with children where I used newspapers, magazines, manuals, etc. And I thought I wanted to know what your experience was. I thought it was a nice way of sort of introducing kids to the idea of like you can find poetry anywhere. Basically.
Exactly. That's why it's titled Poetry is Everywhere. Yeah. So I was blown away, frankly, because they were so creative, and especially Arav, he made these handmade collages. He was brilliant at it.
What is the group?
This was 11 to 15.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing was Google Poetry. I mean, using predictive text and using search. Have you?
It's called FLARF, right? FLARF.
I don't know.
I think it's called FLARF. It's kind of a part of conceptual writing. I think it's called FLARF for those FLARF. Yeah.
Right. And you've experimented with that.
I've experimented with that, but I wasn't very happy with the results because it didn't sound like me. It was too far-fetched. So it's time pass, but not like I wouldn't like send it to a journal anywhere. So yeah. But I think if you check out Unlost Journal, just to see the kind of sources people have used, that in itself is a treasure trove, honestly. Go back to their back issues, even if you don't like the end poem, which sometimes I don't, but the source is so interesting. I'm like, oh, wow, I must try this, you know, so that gets you thinking.
Right.
And sometimes it's just conceptual, you know, the end product really doesn't matter, like the Dadaist experiment. It's just that it's not meant to be earth-shatteringly great. So
yeah, right. It happens often by accident, like when you're typing, right? And you're surprised by autocorrect and Google.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun sometimes.
Does anybody want to put up their work on the chat box? I mean, it's, just curious.
Yeah, or
mail it to her.
also like okay, now I've made multiple participants can share screen, so you guys can share your screen if you're doing it on Word, so you can do that instead of attaching it here and then me downloading it and all of that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Can we mix up blackouts and book spines? You can. That's a great invention. Wow. Okay, so you can take out maybe like list down or type them out in a Word document, all of the titles, and then blackout to create. Yeah, you could do that as well. But that would essentially be blacking out titles, correct? A list of titles. That would still be a blackout. A book spine is essentially, it has to read like a poem. So your end product would still be a blackout created using the different spines of books.
I think I made this book spine poem just now. Can I share it?
Please do. Yeah.
I feel like this terrible entu cutlet, but anyway.
No, it's so, because it's a great way to find out what's in everyone's bookshelves. It's so exciting. I think the one that everyone loves the most is the book spine. So
yeah, now I need to, okay, I need to sort of, oh gosh. 1 minute. I don't know how to do this. Okay.
you can just hold it up for us and read the title if it's not clear.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's better. So
yes.
it's just going to sort of show up in reverse, but yeah, so this is what it is. It's real life, not worthy.
Real life, not worthy. Nice.
So,
really nice.
Yeah.
You could see only the first title. Can you just hold it?
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, sure. I mean, I took a picture and all, but I'm like really bad at it. It's like
okay, lovely.
This is Gibson's book. We had Gibson's talk, no? That
Yeah, yes.
yeah. Do other people have things? I'm being very teacherly and like trying to...
No, you are being participantly.
Hi.
Hi, Shalini.
Can you see this? This says The Art of War. Imagine it forward.
Wow. The Art of War. Imagine it forward. Lovely.
Thank you.
Shalini, you've shared your screen. Do you want to show us a blackout?
No, I don't know how to go out of this.
Oh, okay. You just need to click.
Stop.
Yeah.
I stopped.
Yes.
Thank you.
I also created a little book spine. Could I show it just
Please,
like on
please
camera?
do. Yeah. Big. Can you read it for us? Big magic. Normal people. Cool. Nice.
Even I wanted to share mine.
Please do.
Yeah, can you see it?
Yes. Sparkles of life. Reason. Oh wow! I love this. Reasons stay alive. Superb.
Thank you. It was a really nice workshop.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know if this is visible. This is too.
I will put you on speaker view and then look at it. Yes. Ask me how I became a tree out of syllabus. Wow.
Couple of similar. Yeah.
Amazing. Ask me how I became a tree out of syllabus. Wow. I love this. So quirky and awesome. Really cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I also made another one just right now.
Awesome.
So it is all the bright places. I don't know why it's getting blurred. All the bright places before the coffee gets cold.
All the right places before the coffee gets cold. Wow.
Nice.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Bisha, can you repeat it?
Yes, all the bright places. This is a book by Jennifer Niven. And before the coffee gets cold.
Wow.
I don't know why it's getting blurred. Is it visible? Are the titles visible to you?
Slightly they are, but then they suddenly become blurred.
Background because of
Sorry.
No
Okay, but
problem.
yeah, it's all the bright places before the coffee gets cold.
I think there's some kind of erasure happening.
Man's search for meaning, freedom from the known. Oh, man's search for meaning, freedom from the known. Nice, nice groove.
There's one by, yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody else has also shared.
Experiment and learn everything. Nice. Oh, she's used, oh my gosh. Oh, I have to share my screen for this. This is so cool. 1 second. Oops, where did it go? Using just the resource person date, blah, blah, blah. She's created from this. So cool. Experiment and learn everything. Wow.
Well,
I love this.
That's great.
From the poster. Oh my goodness. This is fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I think someone else also shared.
There's one more that I've made. If I could quickly share it, please.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so here goes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
can you also read? Yeah.
Yeah, it says a singing guru, Shakespeare, in an antique land. So
nice.
Thank you.
I think the blur background is gone now.
Awesome.
I made another one just a minute ago. So it's Man's Search for Meaning and The Old Man and the Sea. Man's Search for Meaning.
Wow.
The Old Man and the Sea.
That ties in together so beautifully. It's so layered. Wow.
Thank you so much.
I can see that you love the book spine, don't you? It's addictive.
I made 3 to 4 like just right now.
I know your bookshelf will never be the same again.
Exactly. So I am thinking of organizing my books in a book spine way, like in my bookshelf.
That was actually done. Let me just pull it up if I can. Great point. It was actually done with reference to the pandemic. The whole poem is a reference to the pandemic. Let me just share it. It was somewhere here. Hold on. Gosh, this was, I think I posted it sometime last year on the Sonic Boom Facebook page. It's somewhere here. I know it is. While you guys are creating, I will hunt for it. 1 second.
Could we please get a recording of your session? I missed some parts of it.
Yeah, we have recorded the entire session. We're still recording. So we will put it up on the CMI Arts Initiative page. So let me just share a link to that. And in about 3 or 4 days, it will be up. And you can just check again. Yeah, I'll just share a link to that.
Otherwise, they can just go to the YouTube and...
Yeah, it'll also be there. Correct. Yeah.
Ha! Found it. Success. Okay.
So that is poetry.
Okay, here it is. The English patient had caught it on the beach. I should have stayed home, she said. Now she was in quarantine in the dark house of splendid isolation still. Hope springs eternal with a little bit of luck, common sense, and personal hygiene. The Corona book of, am I reading that right? The Corona book of horror stories must end soon. Always remember, clean hands, save eyes, and when in doubt, don't go out.
Lovely.
So this was arranged.
The last one is beautiful. When in doubt, don't go out.
Exactly. So this was arranged by a librarian. Book sign, pandemic special.
My God.
I'll just share the link if you want to watch this.
So I've also shared the CMI Arts Initiative link. I mean, the link to the talks. We do a number of things, as Usha said at the beginning, including writing residencies in partnership with Sangam House, workshops, and so on. But this is where you will be able to access also. We've been doing it every month, actually, since when? Usha, February, I think. We started with DW, actually. Yeah, so you'll find all the recordings there, and shlokas will go up soon after this event is done.
Naturally selected, an act of God. Nice. This is cute. Oh my gosh, using the Zoom text. Oh, this is genius. I'll just share my screen. So this is by Ashwani again. Everyone search for the ice cream. This is from our Zoom chat. Wow. Good Lord. I think participants have also used WhatsApp messages in the past, but this is something new. Zoom chat as well. Oh my goodness. You've taken anything with words to a whole different level. Everyone search for the ice cream. So cute.
Okay, do we sort of, you want
If
to
there
sort
are
of,
no other doubts, we can close. Yeah.
yes.
So if any doubts, any questions?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you guys can take your time and email your poems to me. I'd love to take a look at them, including you, Srilata. I want to see your Blackout. You have homework.
I'll do it duly. I love getting homework. I don't like having to set it so much as I like doing it, actually. Yeah. Okay. So then we'll close, and thank you so much, Shloka, for this absolutely delightful, very, very interactive session.
Thank you.
And yeah, all of you, like, do lots of found poetry and find lots of poems, erase lots of stuff, create lots of new things.
Yes.
And
I will have an advanced workshop coming up. So in case you guys are interested, you can just subscribe to my newsletter or just follow me on Insta. I put up, info about upcoming workshops in both these places. So
wonderful.
There is an advanced found poetry as well, where I'll be teaching you 3 other kinds of blackout, 3 other kinds of erasures, remixes, and algorithm poetry, and blah, 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 blah. So it's a lot more intensive, but this was just an introduction to both visual and found poetry and how they are both interlinked in certain ways. So
yeah, and I think it makes poetry less frightening and
absolutely
less,
right,
sort of formidable, and I think it
right,
feels like something you can do, right?
Very accessible, even for children. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you once again, and thanks to all of you for joining in so very enthusiastically. And we hope to see you again in our future CMI Arts Initiative events. We're going to have Priya Sadke Chabria in October, and Sampurna Chatterjee at some point, and some another writer also. We'll keep you posted. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. Okay, and thanks once again, dear Shloka. Love to you, and see you all. Yes, big hug to you.
Bye.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was so
Yeah,
good.
you made poetry such fun. Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I keep telling this jokingly that my